Hey everyone, Holden here with Gold Plating Services. Today we're going to be talking about our bright nickel solution. Our bright nickel solution is the third or the fourth step in the electroplating process. This can either be a pre-plate or a final plate. We're going to be talking about how to plate with bright nickel, troubleshooting and attributes of bright nickel, and how bright nickel functions as a diffusion barrier, pre-plate, or final plate. How to plate with bright nickel. One of the nice things about our bright nickel solution is that it is the same solution for both bath and brush plating. You also don't need to purchase different components and mix them on your own. Our solution comes ready to use. Keep in mind that because our solution has a high concentration of brighteners and a leveling agent, it is sensitive to colder temperatures. Sometimes you might see white crystals form at the bottom of your container. This is normal and may occur regularly. Simply heat up the solution and mix it well to redissolve the crystals. If your plating machine does not include a heater, then you can heat the solution in a microwave dedicated to chemicals or on a stovetop in a pan dedicated to chemicals. We recommend using a nickel bit for brush plating and a bagged nickel anode for bath plating. Over time, nickel anodes start to disintegrate as they simultaneously replenish the solution with nickel. The bag over the anode helps contain the fragments of nickel, otherwise those fragments could deposit onto your items and appear as imperfections, most commonly resembling grains of sand. Set your temperature to 135 to 155 degrees Fahrenheit for bath plating, and for brush plating, you can use it at room temperature, but will work best if it is warmed up because the brighteners in the solution get activated with heat. In the bath plating setup, bright nickel requires agitation for best results. This can be accomplished by various methods. Make sure to begin your agitation before turning on the heater for your bath. Agitation allows the solution to heat up evenly throughout the solution. The voltage for bath plating depends on the size of the bath. For smaller baths, about 1 liter in size, like the Jewel Master, we recommend 5 to 7 volts. And for larger baths, about 5 liters in size like the ProLab, we recommend 6 to 12 volts. For brush plating, we recommend 3 volts. If you'd prefer to go current driven, the cathode current density range for bright nickel is 20 to 50 amps per square foot. For more information, please refer to the document found under the Resources tab on our website that explains how to calculate the current density and amperage for plating. The average time for plating with bright nickel is 2 minutes. If you are needing to fill in scratches or evenly build thickness, you'll need to plate for longer. If you are plating at 40 ASF, you can achieve 2.5 microns of nickel in 3 minutes. And if you are plating at 30 ASF, you can achieve 2.5 microns in 4 minutes. For more details about the nickel deposit rate, refer to this chart. Bright nickel is applied after an item is properly electrocleaned and activated. If you nickel plate an item and want to go back later and add more nickel or gold to your piece, then as long as the piece has dried out, you will need to go back through the steps of electrocleaner, surface activator, and then you could go into the bright nickel or gold. Bright nickel solution will work best when using a higher voltage or amps, using the proper amount of anodes, heating the solution, and using agitation. If these requirements are not met, the luster of the nickel plate will be negatively affected. If you are bath plating, it is beneficial to periodically remove your item from the bright nickel bath to make sure it is plating well. You'll notice that when you are applying a thicker plate of bright nickel, the nickel may tend to over-deposit onto sharp edges or corners. This results in burrs which will need to be sanded off before moving on to the next step. It is important to note that because bright nickel heats up to a higher temperature, the distilled water within the solution evaporates faster. You will want to top off your solution with distilled water to replenish what was lost. We do not recommend topping off your solution with fresh solution as it will lead to overconcentration. We have noticed that if the lid of our ProLab beakers is on while the solution is heating or cooling down, then evaporation collects and drips off the edges of the lid and makes a mess. We recommend removing the lid of your solution when heating or cooling. You will know that the solution needs to be changed when your plating is no longer bright. You don't need to be concerned about the metal content like you do with the gold bath solutions, because the bright nickel is being replenished by the anodes. So the metal content lasts a lot longer than the brighteners. When brighteners get low, the difference in the plating can be abrupt and sudden. Now we're going to be talking about troubleshooting and attributes. If your bright nickel plating appears splotchy on an item, or some pieces in your project don't look quite right while others have plated well, then it's likely something went wrong during one of the pretreatment steps. If you have ruled out pretreatment errors, some important questions to ask if you're running into problems with plating with a bright nickel are: how old is my bath? How much plating have I done with this bath? Am I heating and agitating my bath? Am I using the proper voltage? Or am I plating larger items than before? Unless the bath is old and needing to be replaced, it shouldn't take much to correct the problem. If your bright nickel plate isn't looking right and the issue is consistent throughout your piece or pieces, then it's likely that your voltage or amperage is low. Our bright nickel comes with a high volume of brighteners that work best at a higher voltage and temperature, and that lasts a long while. If you're plating at a fairly low voltage, a piece can start to look burned or hazy. But as you push past that and raise the voltage, the plating brightens. There is a wide range of higher voltages that can work. But if you have a low surface area and too high of a voltage, your nickel will deposit too fast and unevenly and look like this. When bath plating, smaller items won't need as high of a voltage, whereas larger items will need a higher voltage and will react with a burned or hazy look more quickly at a lower voltage. If your item is hazy, it is not necessary to polish or remove the hazy layer of nickel. Just continue to plate on top of it at a higher voltage. The only exception to this is if you're concerned about metallic thickness. A common error in bright nickel plating is not having an optimal anode surface area to part surface area ratio. This ratio needs to be at least 2:1. If you have an anode like this 8x1 with 8 squared inches of surface area on each side for a total of 16 squared inches, then you can plate items with a surface area up to 8 inches squared. For bright nickel solution, it is better to have more anode surface area than not enough. Next, we're going to be talking about how bright nickel functions as a diffusion barrier, preplate, or final plate. Bright nickel as a diffusion barrier. Bright nickel often works well if plated under gold to prevent oxides from certain metals like copper, steel, or brass from diffusing up through the gold layer. However, sometimes nickel is not desirable, such as when there is a concern about nickel allergies, when there is an industry that requires a nickel-free process, or when an item will be regularly exposed to salt. Understanding your items and the context in which they will be used will help you choose the right diffusion barrier for your project. Bright nickel as a preplate. We always recommend polishing your items prior to plating to the finish you will want them to have after plating. But sometimes a little more brightness is needed, and bright nickel may be useful as a preplate for brightening up your pieces. Some companies have nickel solution that functions more as a flash plate. They will brighten up your pieces immediately, but do not have the capability of building thickness and filling in scratches. Our bright nickel solution is able to be used as a preplate to fill in fine scratches and minor defects due to the leveling agent it contains. This works best on scratches that are comparable to about 800 grit sandpaper and finer. If your item has scratches or flaws that are deeper than what you would see from 800 grit sandpaper, we would recommend using bright acid copper first, then following it up with bright nickel. Every industry has different requirements, so it is important to understand those requirements before selecting bright nickel as a diffusion barrier or preplate. For a more in-depth look at diffusion barriers and preplates, please refer to our video about diffusion barriers. And of course, bright nickel is often used as a final plate, and here are some examples. We hope this video has helped you understand a little more about our bright nickel solution. If you have any questions about it, please contact us either by our phones or our tech email. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.